If you have ever had thoughts about no longer being here, this conversation is for you. Viewer discretion is advised, as I'm going to be discussing topics such as suicide, suicidal thoughts slash ideation. So if you are sensitive to this subject matter, please proceed with caution and take care of yourself as you continue to do so. I'm your host, Noed, and this is Let's Talk. Before I go any further, I want to say this. I am not a mental health professional. I am not a doctor. I am not trained in the medical field. In fact, I do not work in the medical field. I am, however, approaching this particular topic from a place of lived experience and compassion. I am going to go over the inspiration behind the topic and sharing as to why am I bringing it to this conversation. I also will be sharing my personal anecdotes. I'm going to be sharing some personal things. I am going to be defining some, couple of terms just to be able to create that distinction. And then I'm going to wrap it up by going over some practical anchors that may be of help to you or anyone that you know that may be experiencing this in the now. Well, why am I talking about suicide and suicide ideation? We live in a time where it is now culturally acceptable for us to talk about depression and anxiety. And it almost seems like we are all anxious to some degree. We are all experiencing some mental health challenges to some capacity. And I think that is very much true. We all have physical health, we have our spiritual health, and we have our mental health. We all have mental health. And sometimes we're going to have pains and aches in our mental health, just like we do with our bodies. That is just part of it. Some days we are good and some days we are not. And sometimes we may be experiencing symptoms that are pretty chronic, that are pretty critical to tend to. And that's okay. It's part of being a human being. We are, thank goodness, in an era where we now have platforms to have these discussions. We now have language and labels to be able to pinpoint, oh, I am having a trauma-induced anxious episode. I just know that our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors, they didn't have what we have today to be able to define and label and point out and calling it for what it is as we do now. Okay. With that said, the attacks don't end. People struggling, that is still very much a thing, right? But even then, in the past week, probably week or two, I have noticed more and more, and this could just simply be, God imposing upon my heart to talk about this for a reason, or it could just be my mind noticing it more just because. But I've noticed a lot more and more people saying things such as, I don't know if I can make it another day. I have been in platforms like Threads where people have said, hey, if I don't make it through the night, please know that I tried really hard. And I tried to stay here as long as I could. A lot of topics like that, a lot of posts like that, and people in the comments, some of them expressing that they too are going through this. I came across recently 2 different videos in completely different platforms, because it's one of those things where it's like, is this the algorithm messing with me? But it's like, okay, these are 2 videos, 2 completely different platforms, 2 completely different devices that are not connected at all with one, with accounts or anything like that. But one video I seen, I was watching a women's conference, and the person doing the teaching or hosting the conference, she began to pray for the women there. And one of the topics that in her spirit she began to pray about was women with suicidal ideations. And that struck with me. And in the way that she was praying, it was so specific. And then I saw the second video where there was a man who was in a room full of people, and he asked the people, how many of you are currently having suicidal thoughts and are having suicidal ideation? And a lot of people raised their hands. So this to me made me realize, like, yes, of course there are people that are going through that, right? I'm not oblivious to it. But it's a lot. I feel like it's a lot more people than what you and I can think or imagine. Like, I think it's way more. It's way more. And to define this a little bit, suicidal ideations, it's simply having the thought of ending one's life intentionally, as in, I no longer want to be here. Now, there is passive and there is active. A passive suicide ideation, that is when you're thinking about it. You're like, man, I really can't do this anymore. I no longer want to be here. And an active ideation is one that has entered into the planning phases of, how am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? And so that's the distinction between the two. Now, one of the things that I have learned myself, and I'm going to be sharing with my own personal experience, is that it's not really about not wanting to live. It's more about make the pain stop. I can't bear this anymore. I've had 2 instances in my life where I've had suicide ideations that went from passive and were ready to cross over into active. The first experience that I had was at age 12, and I really hope that my parents don't watch this, because I've never had this discussion with them. This is something that I kept for years, and still, still keep it. But I figured, here and there I've been sharing in public platforms, and I feel like it's important because now that I'm much older, almost 40, now I have children that are teens, almost adults, makes me look at my 12-year-old self and think, wow, that's a very young age to have those kind of thoughts. And at age 12, I was going through it. A lot of bullying, a lot of just internal battles, very low self-esteem, battling with rejection, just a lot of mental torture, mental and emotional torture. And I felt like I can't do this anymore. And it was about, I need to make this stop. And I knew exactly how I wanted to do it. And that really had turned into passive into active. I knew exactly how I want to do it. I knew when I was going to do it. And I actually went with a group of youth. It was the youth ministry. They traveled to go visit another church that was approximately 3 hours away, give or take. And I tagged along with them, and we went to that service. But because we had a crazy drive back home, a long drive, the leader was like, we got to go. We got to go. So we left before the event was over. And the man that was preaching, so we were at the end of his sermon. The man that was preaching, as we were heading out, he said, like, he stopped everybody. He stopped everybody. And he said, there's somebody here that is attempting against their life tonight. And God wants to let you know, don't do it. I have a plan for your life. I knew in that moment, those words were not for the room. Those words were for me. Nobody, when I tell you, not a single person knew what I was going through. Not a single person knew what I was planning to do. Nothing. This was something that stayed with me. And those words actually stopped everything on its track, because it was so specific. It was like, oh snap, God doesn't want me to do this. That doesn't mean that my problems magically went away. It doesn't mean that I didn't struggle, years on end with different things, but it stopped the active ideation right on its track in that moment. Fast forward 2021, I was at the very, very end of my marriage, going through domestic violence. And it became one of those things where I was just exhausted. I was done. I didn't have a way out. I felt like I didn't have a way out. And the pain, it was so unbearable because it was a lot of mental and emotional torturing that was going on behind the scenes that nobody knew. I felt like my mind was slipping. I felt like I was losing myself, and I really was. And I'm like, the only way that I can make this stop is by ending it all here on earth for me. And how I was saved from it. It was two things. I'm like, number one, my babies, my kids. Because I kept having to tell myself, they too are going through this. Now, for them, it looks different, but they are going through this as well. If I unend myself, I am now leaving them behind to be with this person. And who knows what that's going to turn out like. And now they're going to not only have to deal with the things that they're experiencing with him, but now dealing with the loss of their mom. And I told myself, I cannot be selfish in removing myself from this pain and leaving them in it to deal with it by themselves. But when I tell you I was done, I was done. And secondly, I had to think about the ramification, the eternal ramifications, because I do not know. And I know a lot of Christians would say, well, if you die by suicide, you're going to hell. I don't know that. There are a lot of theological debates on that. We don't know that with certainty. But I'm not willing to risk it. I'm not going to leave the pain here on earth that I know can pass. This too shall pass, to potentially go to an eternal place of damnation where the torture there is eternal. There is no way out. If I'm going to leave earth, it's because I'm going to go be with Jesus. And because I don't know what the answer is, I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk it because I want to meet Jesus face to face one day. That's just it. And be with him for all eternity. And I couldn't leave my babies behind like that. But I had to really cling for sanity, for help. And this is how I know, and I've heard other people talk about, it's not about no longer wanting to live. It's about just make it stop. So just picture physical pain, whether it's your tooth or whatever it is. Think about the worst pain you've ever experienced physically, how you're willing to give me any drug, give me any anesthetic. You are willing to try any homeopathic remedy. You're willing to try anything to make it stop. But now picture that pain, having that pain be an emotional one, having that pain be a mental one, that you just feel like, I can no longer carry this. That is what that is like. Now, some people will try to, we'll talk about here shortly, will try to over spiritualize it. Are there demonic forces that will try to get us to do that, to whisper in our ears to do certain things to end life? Yes, I have experienced that outside of those two instances where I'm like, oh yeah, this is spiritual warfare and these are demonic forces. And there are times where it is just that it is pain. that you are experiencing, whatever that may be, rejection, trauma, the loss of a loved one, whatever it may be, it is just pain that is so bad that one just wants the pain to just stop because it's unbearable. Now, I think about who in the Bible experienced such pain, or at least wanted life to end. And, of course, I can think of, we've got Psalms and Lamentations, and, some of these writers who are like, hey, people like Job, and who's just like, end it, end me. Jonah, who's like, Lord, like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I actually think about Prophet Elijah. Mind you, this was right after killing hundreds of false prophets of Baal. And he just came from a victorious place. Yet he found himself in the desert. He left his assistant behind, isolated himself, and we'll talk about that here shortly, and went to the desert wanting to die, asking God, just end me. I no longer want to live. And this was a person that was close to God, that had a powerful mantle, one of the most powerful people with such prophetic mantle that we come across in the Bible, anointed, that carried out many miracles. I mean, we're talking about Prophet Elijah. Yet I love how God never once scolded him for feeling such a very human emotion. In fact, he had an angel serve him. This man took a nap, multiple naps actually, in fact. And he woke up and there was the angel making him bread, getting him some water. Hey, you need to eat and drink because you have a long road ahead of you. He drank and ate, went back to sleep. He did something very human, and that was to stop and take care of himself. And he had an angel there helping him take care of himself. And that's what I think about this. We don't need to over spiritualize it. Sometimes it's a very, very real human need that we have. Sometimes it's very human actions that we have to take, like, again, sleeping, taking care of ourselves, eating right, those kind of things, just getting the physical help that we need. And I would say this for those of you who maybe have never experienced suicidal ideation, or who maybe somebody who's going through it and you're just like, get better already, and you just getting a little frustrated, or like, I seen this comment on somebody's post one time. They just kept saying, well, why do you always keep bringing up that you don't know if you're going to make it another day? And the person had to explain, listen, this is a very serious thing. So if I make it another day, hey, I made it another day, but I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to hide. So I think that when people open themselves to us and share their struggles, don't roll your eyes. Now, you can't really save them, right? You can't, well, you can try to say, well, get better. You got this. Don't do that. Don't, you can say those things, but the best thing that you can do is sit with them in their pain. You may not even need to talk about the thing that's weighing heavy. Just being present with them sometimes, doing very human things like, I don't know, watching a movie together, whatever it may be. Just being there with them. And I think that as humans, that's one thing we don't do very well, especially in this society where everything is go, 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 and everything is me, 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 is learning how to sit with someone. What does that look like? And a lot of the times that looks like, hey, we're just hanging out. We're low pressure hangout. And we're not talking about the heaviness. And that's okay. Sometimes it is talking about the heaviness. Don't say things like, oh, well, let's pray about this together. Pray for them. Don't get me wrong. There is absolute power in the prayer. But that may not be the time to, we gotta pray this away. That actually may make it worse, may make them want to retrieve. You don't think they've tried that or they thought about that? I'm sure they have. But by all means, still intercede for them. But don't over spiritualize it. Don't do it. Now, some practical anchors. Try your best not to isolate. There's something about isolation that just further feeds into it. Like Prophet Elijah, he left his assistant behind. I know in moments where I get depressed, the first thing I want to do is kind of shut everybody out. Like, hey, I just want to go to my room, or I just want to go on these long drives and walks, which weirdly enough is also one of the ways that I decompress, but I end up just secluding myself and not letting anybody in, not letting anybody know what's going on, what I'm going through. And there's a time and a place for that. But isolation, we have to be very vigilant, because isolation, it will further it'll just feed it even more. The moment that you open up and say, I am struggling, it starts to lose its power. That's why a lot of people that have carried out and have died by suicide, a lot of the family members are like, I had no clue. We had no idea they were suffering this much, because they were isolated. They didn't share. And I bet you, if they shared even a simple phrase, I'm struggling, that would have could have potentially just lengthened their lives a little bit more. It could have potentially helped a ton. You got to be careful with the knee-jerk reaction to isolate and to be alone, and try to do the opposite. I know for me, sometimes it's like when I go through depression, I have to tell myself, okay, you've been at this 1 or 2 days, you need to start doing the opposite. You don't feel like dressing up and you're over here looking like a bum, do the opposite and go dress up. You feel like just being secluded in your room and under the covers in the darkness, do the opposite. Get up and get out. Do the opposite. Talk about it. Pray about it. You have to open up. Now, in all seriousness, if you feel like, hey, I'm going through very active ideation, there are things that you can do, such as dialing 988 or your local emergency number. By all means, do that. I mean, I can't tell you, which resource to reach out to, but get the help that you need. Just know that you also don't have to survive a lifetime in one chunk. I have had moments where, and I tell it to people, don't try to survive the day. Focus on the next 5 minutes. Focus on the next 10 minutes. Okay, you survive those 10 minutes? Okay, how about we give it another 5 minutes? Can you survive the next 5 minutes? And you take it piece by piece by piece, little by little. And that's all it is. Of course, like I said, just as a reminder, we do, of course, want to cry out to God if needed. We'll want to cry out to God, period. He can strengthen you. But it's also okay to talk about what in the world is going on and getting medical help and getting a resource. You're not offending God by that. He created these resources. By all means, please do. But know that just like that man said to me, or God said to me through that man a gazillion years ago when I was 12, don't do it. There's a plan for your life. Don't do it. Well, I'm going to leave it here. I hope that this episode was inspirational to you. I hope that it gives you hope if you feel hopeless. Know that you are loved. And I just want you to make it over the next 5 minutes. And if you have somebody in your life that you know are going through this, be gentle and love on them as best as you can. Show up. Show up in support. Don't be pushy though, but show up. And if you have someone that died by suicide, I am so sorry. Because I know that pain they felt didn't end. It just got transferred to you. But just know that it's not you and it's not your fault. And I hope that you can share their story. Share their story. Share what happened. That way their story can be an inspiration to others who may be struggling. But that's it, guys. Thank you. Till next time.